Okay, welcome everyone. Sunday afternoon. Today's presentation is about Sex Addiction Therapist Toolkit presentation. These are some of the examples of some of the tools that I use in my own practice to help my clients get a little bit deeper into their recovery. And so I'm going to show you several of these, and you'll be able to, get some good ideas about what to do in your own practice. So what you're going to get out of this webinar is practical tools and exercises to help your clients succeed, practical tools to help your group succeed. So a lot of these can be adapted to groups as well as to individuals. Visual aids to explain psychoeducational concepts, experiential exercises to engage individuals and groups, and free information because I have nothing better to do on a Sunday afternoon. Anyway, I'm trying to see who's entering the waiting room. Okay, I think everybody's here. Okay, so these are the things that we're going to be talking about today. The actual toolkit has about 22 different exercises on it. I'm going to give you just some of these today, so you can see kind of what's in the toolkit. Number one is the shame mind map. A mind map is basically where you put a theme, like here we put shame is the theme of the mind map, and then you have these spokes going out from the mind map. So you put a feeling in there like shame, and then you have thoughts, behaviors, feelings, and values. And so what you do is you have them put in the actual feeling, and then like under shame, I'm not good enough. I have to prove myself. I'm always doing this. I should have done that. I shouldn't have done that. Like I try to teach that there's four parts of shame, and those are when I use words like must, should, always, and never. Um, and then you have them write down the thoughts. So in other words, you'd give them this with blanks in it. I'm just showing you what it looks like filled out, but you'd give them this with blanks in those portions. And you can do that with any feeling. Like you can do it with sadness or anger or whatever. What are the thoughts that come up when I have anger? What are the behaviors that I do when I'm angry, right? I might scream, or I might destroy things, or I might just get quiet, things like that. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. But that's what we're talking about. It's feelings, thoughts, behaviors, and values. It's like the CBT triangle, basically. And please, if you have any questions and you want to, ask, just interrupt me, or when I get through, and just ask a question. We will have time at the end for questions. I'm just pausing because I have to trying to admit all the rest of the people into the waiting room. There we go. Okay. Hi, Louise.
Hi.
So I can see somebody's here, really here and live. Okay. All right. So next. All right. So this is my two paths leading to addiction. We start over here on the left with trauma, emotional, physical abandonment, any kind of sexual trauma, abuse, things like that. So there's two ways to go. If we go up, there's no emotional needs met, strict rules. So the client, the addict withdraws, and then the fantasy of being seen or important, and then that leads to addiction. The other path is the lower path is neglect or no rules. So on the top, we have strict rules. The bottom, we have no rules. So when there's neglect or no rules, the person becomes entitled to doing whatever they want to do. And so basically, if there's no rules and they're, as a kid, they're getting away with a lot of different things in school or other places, then they're going to feel like that when they become addicted. They're going to feel like I can get away with this. So therefore, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. But really, there's a sense there of low self-worth. I'm entitled to act out any way that I want. And again, that leads to addiction. The other paths leading to addiction are genetic predisposition, as we know, is if there's some type of addiction in the family, then they're more likely to end up with addiction also. The developmental process, in other words, where you grow up and you mature at a certain at different levels, and sometimes even because the internet, for example, this porn example is so addictive in itself that that can become an addiction in itself. You don't have to have all these things happening like the trauma or the abuse or the attachment issues. All right, so this next one is called sex addiction sociometry. And sociometry is just a way, it's an experiential exercise where you're going to put certain things on the floor, little pieces of paper or big pieces of paper on the floor with certain messages or feelings, and people get up and they stand by whatever they are attached to at the time, whatever is meaningful for them at the time. And the difference here is that you can get a lot deeper with the clients if you have something, if you're standing up and they've got to be active and walking around and things like that. So what you put on the floor are, imagine these are little sheets of paper. You'd have, so what, talking about sex addiction specifically, these are some ways to figure out where the person is at. So these are some of the why questions. Trying to find myself. I don't get any at home. It's just sex. No one will know. That's an excuse. Craving affirmations. A lot of times when we're neglected, when a client is neglected or abandoned, then they're going to be craving affirmations from someone. So they go out and they might look at porn or start texting or sexting, things like that. I deserve it. I work hard. There's one. That's one for the people that feel entitled to act out. I don't love my spouse anymore. Most people are not going to really say that, but you can put it there. And then these are on the left here are some other ones. It's just entertainment. It's not emotional. I can control it myself. I have to get my needs met somewhere. If you had my blank, you would do that also. Um, so, some of those are kind of fun. I'm easily triggered by blank. Sex addiction affects my relationship by blank. If only she were blank, I wouldn't have to. And of course, you can switch that around to he, or basically you can switch these around to your group, or because you know where some of your people are, so you can adapt some of these cards to your population. But this is a really good group exercise. You can do this with individuals also, but it's a great group exercise to be able to open up and see where people really are, and then have the rest of the group be able to see that they're not alone in this. Any questions on any of these? Okay, more sociometry. This is another one. You can use these separately or together, mix them up, do them at different times. I cannot survive without sexual satisfaction. As you know from a lot of our clients, they're addicts, and they feel like they can't get by without some type of sexual satisfaction. So it's good to know if that's where they are. Number two, I'm reading the books, working the steps, going to meetings, have a sponsor, and still relapsing. So that should give you some tips or some clue as to what's going on with them. I've used charm, humor, good looks, or helpfulness to gain sexual access and cover up insincerity. I'm not an addict. You're just wrong about what you think about me and my behavior. So again, some denial, some clues as to what's happening with the clients. Okay, number three is the boiling pot analogy. This is one of my favorites. It's basically basically what I say to my clients is we don't wake up one morning and decide that we're going to cheat on our spouse, or we're going to just get addicted to porn, but something is going on over a period of time, of days, weeks, months, or years even. And so the boiling pot analogy shows this progression, how this works. Okay, I thought there was something else there. All right, so the way this works is, if you notice, there's little numbers here, 5, 10, 20, etc. So what it is that a boiling pot does not boil right away. It has to build up temperature, and then eventually it boils over. So the analogy is that this is what happens with addiction also. So what happens is, let's say something happens at work, you get angry, you're stressed out, the temperature rises 10 degrees. And you come home and you have an argument with your spouse, the temperature rises 30 degrees. Then something else happens, someone's sick in your family, the temperature rises another 20 degrees. So eventually, all these things are happening over a period of time, and then eventually the pot boils over. And pot boiling over means obviously that the client is acting out. So what are the things that cause the temperature to rise? Are rid, restless, irritable, and discontent, like in the 12-step groups, fear, resentments, lust, and pride. So this covers that idea of I'm entitled to want to act out. That's the pride part. I've had a rough day. I deserve this. Lust, seeing something that causes you to lust after it. Resentments, as we know, are the number one um, issue for acting out for addicts. Fear could be fear of success, fear of failure, and then the restless, irritable, and discontent. So what you're showing the client is that over a period of time, all these little things build up. And so I use this in conjunction with, especially with my couples, I use this in conjunction with Thanos, which is a 5 or 10 minute check-in for a couple where they talk about feelings, affirmations, needs, taking ownership, and then sobriety. And so this can be a really good way. In other words, if I can talk about my feelings and talk about what's going on with me every single night a little bit, it doesn't have to be about the relationship. It's just about what's going on during my day. Then these little 5 and 10 and 20 minute incidents don't build up, and therefore the pot is a lot less likely to boil over, so to speak. Any questions on this one? Okay. This one is called the inner child trauma, the squares of influence. And again, I've filled in all these things here. Really, you would adapt this with blanks again, but you have the inner child here. In other words, the child that's just growing up, 2, 3, 4, up to about 10 years old. Um, the next square is what the world told us to do. So the child grows up and he's told, we don't talk about our feelings, don't trust anybody, don't trust strangers, don't feel, we don't talk about feelings in this family, don't ask for help, please others, be perfect, and don't cry. So those are just some of the I'm just giving you examples here, but what the way I do this is I have it blank, and then I'll ask the people in the group or the individual, what did the world tell you to do when you were younger? What were some of the rules in your house? Like when we do the sh the trauma egg, right? We ask them what are the messages that you got? What are the rules and the roles that you served? So that fills in over here. Then the next one is, okay, now that I'm feeling these things as a kid, I can't talk, I got to be perfect, I have to please others. What are the defenses and adaptations for survival? So, how am I going to survive as a kid when I have all these issues that I can't really express myself and I'm shut down? So, so I learned to keep secrets, be funny, be humble, be passive, rebel, opt out, be controlling, sarcastic, pretend to be somebody else, lie, manipulate, etc. So, again, you would ask the people in the group, what did you deal with? How did you deal with these things when you felt this way as a kid? And then have these actual answers in your back pocket to kind of elaborate for them on some of the things that they might be going through that they're not thinking about. Next is medicators. So now that I've got to do all these things, I got to lie, I'm going to manipulate, I'm going to keep secrets, all these things. What are the medicators that I'm going to do to help me medicate? So that would be control, food, nicotine, work, sex, gambling, video games, um, the phone, all those things. So it helps them identify, this whole thing helps them identify the progression of their life, basically, from a child all the way till now, by showing them how all these things have evolved. And so it helps you as the clinician to be able to take some of these things that they're dealing with and then work through it with them. Then the last one is resources. This is kind of like the three circle plan now. Moderation, trust, ask for help, uh, exercise, therapy, 12 steps, meditation, mindfulness, all those things that we teach them on how to regulate their emotions. So this is really a fun one to do. It's gets them really into a lot of the things that are causing their addiction and their grief, and it's very helpful. Any questions on that? Okay. Now, one of the things that I've done a lot of research on is the why question, because a lot a lot of my clients, spouses or partners, what the main question they ask is, why did you do this? And so it's a very hard question to answer. So I did a lot of research on some of the reasons, using some of Esther Perel's work and some other people's work, and it's good. In other words, it's also good for, why did you have an affair? And just because somebody has an affair doesn't mean they're a sex addict. But this is a good way to kind of make that differentiation between sex addiction and just affairs. Um, so some of the things that came up were, it's self-exploration, self-discovery, seduction nature of transgression. A lot of people, because it's not right, they want to take that risk because they're so used to taking risks. The allure of lives not lived. So I don't, somebody's only been with one person sexually. They're thinking about, well, what am I missing out? What about other people? Maybe there's somebody better out there, so the allure of lives not lived. Feeling new or exiled emotions. An expansive experience that involves growth, exploration, and transformation. So some people think that if I go out and be with other people or explore other things, that's going to give me, it's going to satisfy that need for exploration. Escaping the ropes that bind them to the daily grind for a little while to feel young again, unburdened, and able to explore new life possibilities. So this is a very popular one that a lot of people use, um, just trying to get away, trying to escape. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's what they do. They are not looking for another person. They are trying to find who they really are or what part of them is still missing. So that's where, what I call the hole in the soul, that there's something missing there that they're trying to fill up, and they're using addiction or affairs or whatever to fill that up. It doesn't have to be sex addiction, it could be any addiction. But they're trying to find that part of them that's missing, that they're using this to fill up. And then there's, of course, love addiction, unworthy of love. They attach to anyone who shows them interest or attention. So a lot of those people that have low self-worth, they're going to go and they're going to look for validation anywhere they can find it. So they end up texting and sexting and trying to meet up with other people. But even pornography is a way, because in their fantasy, they're they think that they're getting affirmation from that person or that video or something. But really, pornography and prostitution is more about control and power. It's, I can finally, after all these years, I finally have control and power over something. I can turn this video on, this video off. If I'm paying someone, they have to do what I tell them to do because I'm paying them. So I finally have that need, finally have that fulfillment of power. Feeling intimidated by your spouse in the same way you felt threatened in childhood. Now we know as CSATs, we don't blame the partner or the spouse, but this is just within their own mind, how they're justifying their actions. Real life connection is terrifying, so they seek out sex to avoid real life connection. So, as we know, a lot of sex addicts are avoidant, and it's easier to be in fantasy sexually with someone than to be in a real life situation with someone, even their spouse. And so they go out and stay in a fantasy kind of world. Acting out numbs the overwhelming agony of being loved by a real life partner. Again, that's basically almost the same type of thing. Maladaptive coping strategy rather than a pleasure-seeking experience. So a lot of time it's not about the sexual experience, it's more about the hunt, or it's more about finding someone just to even talk to that's going to show me some attention or affection. Okay, so the toolkit includes all these things I've been talking about, plus attachment style graph, attachment perspective on intimacy, attachment and addiction graph, two paths to addiction, the boiling pot, five circles, I can't versus I don't. Now that's an interesting. It's a way of showing the addict that instead of saying I can't act out anymore because I'm an addict, saying to them, I don't act out anymore. In other words, this is not, it's more of a positive way of looking at recovery. I don't act out anymore. That I'm not that type of person. So that's also it's a good way to reframe the addiction. And then sex addiction sociometry, which I showed you, answering the why question, inner child trauma. I think I showed you that one. They also have a urge surfing audio, which is something you can give to your clients. It's an audio, um, just very, very short on helping them reduce the urges. And then there's a whole bunch of exercises for the belief system, behavior change, glass half empty or full, the negative belief buster. Yeah, so all those things are included. I'm just giving you kind of some of them. So then I have one of the main things is the Healthy Intimacy for Recovery Kit, and this is something I developed to help couples with intimacy. So it starts out with what is empathy? What is intimacy by Paula Hall. Paula Hall is the UK guru who does a lot of research in the UK on sex addiction. What blocks intimacy, techniques for deepening intimacy, the four phases of love. No, I think that should be the four phases. Yeah, love. Limerence, trust, commitment and loyalty, safety and connectiveness. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse by John Gottman. What are the things that cause people to get divorced, criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. Then I also talk about the 8 stages of intimacy. The first stage of intimacy is attraction. Number 7 is sex. And so people go from 1 to 7 right away, attraction to sex. And they wonder why they can't have a long-term relationship because they're skipping 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which are spiritual intimacy, emotional intimacy, having similar interests, being able to talk, being able to do things together. All those things have to be present and to keep a marriage together. Um, and then a little bit on sex addiction. When can we start having sex again? This is after discovery, talking about sex, developing sexual intimacy, and healthy sex versus sex addiction. So this is a really good tool that you can use to develop or give to a couple that's struggling with the intimacy. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Um, all right. So I gave you about half of these to show you how they work. If you're interested in one of them, just you can email me and I'll send you a copy of one of them. If you'd like the whole toolkit, um, you can save $50 by going to this um, QR code or this link here. It's usually 127 for the whole kit for all those 22 things, 22 exercises, and the audio and the intimacy kit. But you can get it for 77 if you would like today. And here's my information. I do have a new YouTube channel which has a lot of information for clients on porn addiction, sex addiction. It's called Sex Addiction Therapy. It's on YouTube. And my website has also a lot of resources for clients and for therapists. So, any questions on anything that we talked about? Any clarifications? Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I hope you have a nice rest of the day today. And good luck in your therapy, and I hope the weather is better than it is here in Memphis, but it's getting better. So have a good day, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.